Hello students. The HB Kapadia group of schools in collaboration with GSTV is present Amrut, which will be beneficial to you all for appearing the board examination this year. Myself, Mrs. Hetal Jani, on behalf of the HB Kapadia group of schools, welcomes you in the paper discussion of the subject statistics. Though statistics is a calculation based subject, but it is easy if you understand the concept and remember few formula and formats. So, concept, formula and formats are the key to success and can score maximum marks in the statistics subject. Let us start with the paper discussion. The entire question paper is divided into 5 sections, section A to section F. Talking about the first section A, section A is a multiple choice question where each question will carry 1 mark and it has maximum 20 marks. Students, be careful in writing the correct option along with the correct answer because it is a cash mark and there is no scope of deduction of marks. Neither there is a negative marks, so attempt all the questions here. Moving to the next section, section B. Section B is answer in 1 or 2 sentences, which is again 1 mark each. And in section B, the questions pertaining to the theory will be asked. So students, write the question answers to the point, specific, and see to it that you do not skip any question here. And most important thing is, though section B is a theoretical question, it will be easy for you to score marks if you are writing the answer to this point and specific. Section A and B, all the questions are important, but good news for you, from section C you have general options. Students, you will be getting 15 minutes for reading the question paper before the exam. So, utilize that 15 minutes rationally and decide which questions you are going to attempt. You select that questions which you are comfortable and confident of. So, in section C, you have to attempt only 7 out of 9 questions. Each question carries 2 marks. So, the total of the section C is 14 marks. Students, section C can be a combination of theory questions as well as sums. The theory questions which are asked here to be written in points. Be careful students, write the answers in points, do not write in paragraph. And the sums should be written in steps. Highlight your answers because each and every step will be containing marks. Moving to the next section, section D. Students, here you have to attempt only 8 questions out of 12. So you have 4 options. You can skip 4 questions, so be careful. Write that answers only which you are confident of. It carries 3 marks, so the total of section D is 24 marks. Next, coming to the next section, section E. Section E is of 12 marks, 4 marks each. Here you are supposed to write any 3 questions out of 4. Section E, all the sums will be from part 2 textbook of statistics. And the last section, section F, but very important because it carries 20 marks. Here you have to attempt any 4 out of 6 questions. Each question carries 5 marks and these are long type of questions. So be good in your presentation, your format, your tables, your formula, your steps, and even the final answers along with the unit. Each and everything contains marks. Each and every step has marks weightage. So be careful about your presentation in section F because it has maximum marks. So this is all about the paper style of statistics. Moving towards the chapter wise weightage. Now in the chapter wise weightage, you can see in part 1, chapter 1 is of 12 marks, chapter 2, 3 and 4. Each chapter consists of 12 marks coming to 48 marks. But if it is with option you have 16, 18, chapter 3 16 and chapter 4 18, that comes to 68 marks. So if students you are not comfortable with part 2, if you are good in part 1 and you do part 1 thoroughly, then you will find 68 marks questions out of 100 in part 1. Talking about part 2. In part 2, there are 5 chapters. Chapter 1 probability is of 12 marks. Chapter 2 is of 10 marks. Chapter 3 is of 10 marks. 4 and 5 is also 10 marks. So that comes to 52 marks. And if it is with option it is of 62 marks. The 62 marks of part 2 and 68 marks of part 1. So you can wisely decide that which chapters you are supposed to do and which chapters to be given the priority. Now, moving towards the blueprint. Talking about the blueprint which is prepared according to the sample paper of Gujarat Secondary and Higher Secondary Board, you can get an idea what type of questions and which questions will be asked in the different sections. Section A, you will see that from question number 1 to question number 8, the MCQs will be asked from part 1. So, each chapter will be having 2 MCQs each. From chapter 1 index number 2 MCQs, from chapter 2 linear correlation 2 MCQs, from chapter 3 linear regression 2 MCQs, and from chapter 4 2 MCQs each. Now, from question number 9 to question number 20, the MCQs will be asked from part 2. You have part 2 chapter 1, that is probability, 2 MCQs will be asked from that. From chapter 2 binomial distribution, you will be having 3 MCQs, and from chapter number 3, that is normal distribution, you will be having 3 MCQs, and from chapter 4 and 5 limit and differentiation 2 MCQs each. So accordingly you can do the preparation. So you can prepare accordingly. We will continue the discussion of section B after a short break. Keep watching Pass Thawanu Pancham. Welcome back after the short break. Let us continue with our discussion about the blueprint of statistics subject. We have discussed section A. Now in section B, from question number 21 to 24, you have questions from part 1. Each chapter, 1 question. From question number 25 to 30, the questions will be asked from part 2. So this is how part 1 and part 2 questions are divided in section B, which carries 1 mark. Moving towards section C, as I told you earlier that there are 7 questions to be attempted out of 9 questions. So, be sure which questions you are supposed to attempt. Now, from part 1, each chapter will be having 1 question. 31, 32, 33 and 34. 1 question each from each and every chapter of part 1. And from part 2, 1 question from chapter 1 probability, 1 question from chapter 2 binomial distribution. From chapter 4 you have 2 questions, and from chapter 5 differentiation you will be having 1 question. So this is how section C questions are divided. Talking about section D, which is 3 marker question, question number 40 and 41 will be from chapter 1 of part 1, means you have 2 questions from index number. Chapter 2 linear correlation, you will be asked 1 question. Chapter 3 linear regression, you will be asked 2 questions. And chapter 4 from time series, you will be asked 1 question. Now students, 3 questions will be asked from first chapter probability of part 2, and 2 questions from chapter 2 binomial distribution, and in the last 5th chapter 5th you will be having 1 question. That is how section D is divided. Moving towards section E, which is a 4 marker question, you will be having 4 questions, out of which you are supposed to select 3 questions and attempt 3. So from part 2 chapter 3, part 2 chapter 3 and part 2 chapter 4, part 2 chapter 5. As we have discussed earlier, section E will be entirely of part 2. Moving towards section F. Section F, you have 6 questions, out of which you are supposed to attempt 4 questions. You can see you will be having 1 question from index number, 2 questions from the chapter 2, that is linear correlation, and chapter 4, that is time series, you will be having 2 questions. Section F entirely will be from part 1. Students, very important thing that section E is of part 2 and section F is of part 1. So, if students you are thoroughly prepared for part 1 and the average students who are not comfortable and not good in logical chapters, then after analyzing the blueprint you can see that if you want you can skip chapter 1. Chapter 1 can be skipped here as it goes in optional. Same way, here also you can skip chapter 1 because in section E, no question is asked from chapter 1 probability. Similarly, no question is asked from chapter 2 binomial distribution, and in section C and D, you can skip chapter 2 questions as it may go in option. So, you can that way skip 1 or 2 chapter if you are not comfortable and if you are not 100% sure for few chapters which you find it difficult. This is about the blueprint. By analyzing the blueprint, you can definitely score more marks and can do smart work. Now, as we have discussed that section A is having 20 marks weightage, so we will discuss few MCQs examples for your understanding. Let us understand and see the examples of few multiple choice questions which can be asked in board examination. This type of questions are asked for MCQ. First, which consumption is used in the calculation of last year's index number? As we all know that in last year's index number, consumption of the base year is used. Similar type of question like which consumption is used in the calculation of past year's index number can be asked. So your answer will be consumption of the current year. Moving towards the next, same as we have seen that second question, second MCQ is also of index number. So which index number gives idea of standard of living of people? As we have studied that standard of living of the people can be ascertained. The index number can be found with the help of cost of living index number. So that will be the answer. Or question or MCQ can be asked like what is the ideal index number? Which is the ideal index number? Fisher's index number is the ideal index number. These are few examples of the first chapter index number. Next, moving to the next MCQ from second chapter, what is the value of R if all the points plotted in a scatter diagram lie on a single line? As we know that if all the points are lying on the straight line, then it is a perfect positive or perfect negative correlation. So what will be the value of perfect positive or perfect negative correlation? It can be 1 if it is perfect positive. It can be -1 if it is perfect negative. So you will take 1 or -1. Similarly, a simple question can be asked like in context with correlation, what do you call the graph if the points of the paired observation are shown in a graph? If all the points are shown on the graph, then in context of correlation it is known as scatter diagram. So you will mark the option C. These are few examples of multiple choice question. We shall continue the examples of multiple choice question after a short break. Keep watching Past Thamar. Welcome back after a short break. We were discussing the examples of multiple choice question which can be asked in the board examination. Let us continue with the examples of multiple choice questions. What type of example or MCQ can be asked in linear regression? Like the best fitted line of regression can be obtained by which method? We know that the sum of the squares of regression can be minimized. The error can be minimized by the best method, that is least square method. So least square method is the right option here. Next, regression coefficient B and correlation coefficient R have dash sign. So if you do not know the answer, then just recall the formula that Byx is equals to R into Sy upon Sx, and standard deviation cannot be in negative. It is always positive. So what is left is Byx, that is B, and the correlation coefficient R. So that should be equal. So the sign will be equal, that is C option, equal. Next, which variation is shown in decrease in the production of a company due to strike? Now what type of variation is this? This type of fluctuation can occur anytime, right? It is a random fluctuation. Strike can occur anytime. So the right option is the random fluctuation. Even the examples can be asked from the other components also, like seasonal component, cyclical component. For example, which variation is shown with the increase in the demand of raincoats during monsoon? Then that type of example is of seasonal component. So similar type of examples or MCQs can come from chapter 4, that is time series. Now one more example from time series. How do you show the additive model of the time series? Now this is not only important for MCQ but even for your 1 mark question in section B, it is asked that what is the additive model of time series. So what is the additive model? Model means where your trend will be the total combination of all the 4, that is trend, seasonal variation, cyclical variation and random variation. So all the 4 together gives you the YT. So the right option is TT plus ST plus CT plus RT. Now you may know the answer, but while you are writing the answer in hurry, you may not see it carefully. So be careful in marking the option, because each and every option you may feel that it is same. So the addition sign needs to be seen properly. This is about chapter 4. Now moving towards part 2 examples. Which event is given by a spatial subset null set of the sample space U? Null set, that is empty set, which is not possible. So in this case the option is D, that is impossible event. This type of event is not possible. Next, P of A oblique B is equals to P of A and P of B by A is equals to P of B. Then what type of events are A and B? Now can you see here that there are 2 events which may not occur together. For example, tossing a coin and getting both head and tail is not possible, but that both the events are different. So these are independent events. Moving towards next few examples of chapter 2, binomial distribution. Mean and variance of a discrete probability distribution are 3 and 7 respectively. What will be E of x square for this distribution? Now this is one kind of sum where you need calculation. So for such type of MCQ, you use the rough page and do the calculation and then mark the answer. Now E of x square is asked. Hope you remember the formula. V of x is equals to E of x square minus E of x the whole square. So variance formula you remember. You are given here mean and variance. You have to substitute the value of mean E of x and substitute the value of variance V of x, and then you can get the value of E of x square. V of x is equals to E of x square minus E of x the whole square. When you calculate this, you will get the answer 16. Same way, such type of examples can also be asked wherein E of x square is given to you, you are supposed to find mean. It may possible that variance you are supposed to find while mean and E of x square is given. So out of the 3, any one needs to be found if the other 2 are known. So any one known value can be found here. 12th, for a positively skewed binomial distribution with n is equals to 10, which of the following values might be the value of mean? Recall your properties for a positively skewed binomial distribution. When we say positively skewed distribution, means your P should be less than 0.5. P should be less than 0.5. That means your NP should be such that P should be less than 0.5. So if you substitute this value 3 on the trial and error method, if you are substituting 3 and then getting NP, then you will find that this is the value of mean where your P will be less than 0.5. Same way the question can be asked for negatively skewed distribution also. For negatively skewed distribution, what can be the answer? So moving towards the next question, which variable of the following will be an example of discrete variable? Discrete means finite or countable variable. Now from this, finite or countable variable means the birth year, right, which do not go continuously. There is no decimal, it is not unending. That means birth year is the right answer. Same way question can be asked, which is the example of continuous variable. Accordingly, you have to write the answer. In normal distribution, usually which limits includes 99% of the observation. So you have to remember all the properties of the normal distribution, chapter 2, for writing the answers of such type of MCQ. Both properties of normal distribution as well as properties of standard normal distribution. And for this type of questions, you have to remember the properties of binomial distribution. So if your concept and theory are done, then you will be able to answer correctly all such type of MCQs. We will meet you soon in the next episode for discussion of paper pattern and examples of statistics subject. Keep watching Pasthavanu Panchamrut.